very warm welcome. You're watching WION Climate Tracker with me, Molly Gambhir. Before we get started, a quick look at what's lined up for you. Liz Truss is set to become the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and before she takes office, there is a chain of carefully choreographed events involving both of them flying to Scotland because the Queen is in Balmoral because of her mobility issues. But while Truss and Johnson are heading to the same destination, the two leaders are flying in separate aircraft, thus doubling the carbon emissions of both their journeys. The two are expected to fly on private jets. The carbon footprint of a flight from London's Heathrow to the Aberdeen International Airport is around 196 kg of carbon dioxide. And compared to that, a train journey from London to Aberdeen emits around 29.5 kilograms of carbon dioxide. And the reason why they are traveling on different flights is understandable. There are security issues involved, especially as a country's Prime Minister and the successor. But flying on a private jet for such a short distance is not really necessary. Truss could have taken a commercial flight or even a train up to the destination. According to independent studies, a single private jet can emit 2 metric tons of CO2 in an hour. Again, private jets are 5 to 14 times more polluting than commercial flights, especially when you calculate the carbon footprint per passenger. Secondly, the UK is in the middle of a massive cost of living crisis, showing some energy. Sobriety right now is the need of the hour. But this is not the first time Truss has done this. As the Foreign Secretary, she flew by a private jet to Australia. This was at the cost of over £500,000 to the taxpayer. So instead of using scheduled flights, she took a private jet halfway across the continent. And not just the cost, the carbon footprint was also massive. The flight generated around 500,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide. Just to put that number in perspective, the average carbon footprint for any individual is around 7,000 kgs. But it's not just politicians who are being called climate criminals, quote unquote. Celebrities have repeatedly been called out for their excessive use of private jets. Earlier this week, French football club Paris Saint-Germain was called out for their short-haul hop. It was because of a private jet that they took. And I also want to tell you that Nantes, the location, is just 380 kilometers away from Paris. So the PSG players could have taken a train. The journey would just take 2 hours and 45 minutes, but instead they opted for an aircraft. The PSG management has defended its decision to fly the aircraft back to the nation's capital. The club officials say outgoing trains were unavailable after their late victory on Sunday night. Climate activists also slammed the PSG star Lionel Messi for his use of private air travel. From June to August, Messi took 52 flights with his private jet. The total carbon emissions standing at around 1.5 million kgs of carbon dioxide. And that is how much a single French person would be responsible for in almost 150 years. For most of 2022, the world's ocean basins have been relatively quiet and free of tropical cyclones. But this week, Typhoon Hinam Nor has shattered that calm, spinning up quickly to Category 5 strength in the Western Pacific Ocean. The typhoon has been making headlines, and in the latest It has departed from South Korea after making a heavy landfall in the country's south. And one of the most powerful storms of the year made landfall in South Korea, leaving the country reeling under severe flooding and damage. Typhoon Hinam Nor swept past the peninsula's southeastern corner, causing at least one death, sparking a fire at a steel plant, and leaving tens of thousands without power. It was the second major storm to batter the country in recent weeks, after the heaviest downpour in decades led to deaths and widespread destruction in August. In Busan, about 2,900 people are still waiting to be evacuated. Strong winds and heavy rainfall have caused hundreds of flight cancellations, the suspension of business operations and trains, school shutdowns, and forced nearly 3,500 people to move to a higher ground. Though typhoon warnings have been lifted across most parts of the country, President Yoon Suk-yeol has urged the officials to take precautions until the typhoon is completely gone. And in the port city of Busan, large waves were seen crashing into the seawalls, leaving many roads flooded. Ship refueling operations were temporarily halted and will be resumed shortly. As authorities continue the rescue operations, the number of casualties is expected to rise. The storm formed last week and traveled across East Asia. It brought as much as 37 inches of rain to parts of Jeju Island, which is a popular vacation spot. But the worst of the flooding appeared to hit the city of Pohang, a port city and steel manufacturing base in the southeast. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, the typhoon, traveling north at about 52 kilometers per hour, left the Korean peninsula about 7:10 a.m. and is expected to head northeast and pass about 400 kilometers northwest of Sapporo, Japan, around midnight on Tuesday. And on to Mexico now. Storm K has strengthened into a hurricane off Mexico's Pacific coast. And according to forecasts, it will continue to affect southwestern Mexico for the next day or so. Over the weekend, K damaged houses and overflowed the rivers and has also been the cause of at least 3 deaths. The storm lashed Mexico's Pacific coast. The tropical storm strengthened into a Hurricane 8 storm in the eastern Pacific to reach the hurricane status. Floods are not uncommon in Central Africa, but this time the rainfall came early and was a lot more abundant, wreaking havoc in the region, specifically in the landlocked country of Chad, experiencing the heaviest seasonal rainfall in over 30 years. And in the recent weeks alone, over 340,000 people and more than 55,000 households have been impacted by unprecedented flooding caused by torrential rainfall. And due to the intense rainfall, thousands were forced to flee their flooded homes over the past month. The capital is only navigable by boat, which is why families have to pile into wooden boats just to cross streets.
Local authorities need to take responsibility and help our district build canals to evacuate water from the stormwater management ponds. These ponds are full and water is overflowing into the houses. None of the district's neighborhoods were spared by the floods this year. It's really sad to see so many people suffering. We need to urgently find a solution to evacuate all that water.
According to officials, this was the first time since 1990 that the country has witnessed such heavy rainfall. Entire towns have been submerged underwater, forcing many residents to abandon their homes and live in shelters.
I'm a widow with children. Our home collapsed because of the floods and now we are homeless without any money. We've been here for 3 weeks and nobody is coming to help us. We are at the mercy of mosquitoes. We have no food and some of us even have malaria. Nobody is thinking of helping us. Authorities are looking at us from afar as if we are migrating birds.
Though the government has set up an emergency crisis committee to help the flood-affected people with food, blankets and health kits, many residents staying at the local school say that they are still waiting for government help.
We are asking for the government to intervene. We have problems with food, sanitation, drinking water, and we need protection against mosquitoes. Also, there is no shelter when it rains. All the classes are full. When it rains, people have to stay outside.
Across West and Central Africa, abnormal rainfall has left vast areas submerged underwater in several countries over the past month. In recent years, intense rainfall, land degradation and poor urban planning have led to more frequent flood disasters in West and Central Africa. And what makes matters worse is that according to the Notre Dame Global Adaptation Initiative Index, these countries are among the most vulnerable to climate change. And now let's look at a climate crisis which looks like it's not ending. The drought in Horn of Africa has tightened its grip. The UN is warning of dire consequences. This is the 5th consecutive failed rainy season in the Horn of Africa region. Somalia and its neighbors, Ethiopia and Kenya, are in the grip of the worst drought in more than 40 years. Following 4 failed rainy seasons that wiped out livestock and crops, humanitarian agencies have been ringing alarm bells for months now. At the start of this year, the World Food Programme had put the number at 13 million and appeals for donors to open their wallets at a time of great need. Humanitarian workers say funds were initially slow in coming, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, among other crises, drawing attention from the disaster in the Horn. And the war in Ukraine has also sent global food and fuel prices soaring, making aid delivery more expensive. In a bid to garner support, the first ever global summit to focus solely on accelerating climate adaptation in Africa was held on Monday. African heads of state and top figures from global organizations met in Rotterdam to address climate change financing in Africa. And according to officials, many countries confirmed that they will spend about $25 billion by 2025 to boost Africa's efforts to adapt to climate change.
And this is the largest ever globally effort on adaptation. So it's something, but we need the money. The African Development Bank put down $12.5 billion out of $25 billion. So we're not begging, right? We're saying that we didn't cause the problem. We come to the conversation with very good heart, a very great commitment. Meet us halfway.
With 2 months to go until COP27 in Egypt, the summit aims to garner further support and resources for the region's flagship Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program.
I think it is entirely possible for the key players to come together behind this for COP27. Certainly, today's summit had clarified the ask, and it has taken us further in terms of the path we need to take between now and Sharm el-Sheikh to ensure results that truly meet Africa's expectations.
African countries are among the nations that are least to blame for global warming. The continent accounts for less than 4% of global emissions of carbon dioxide, but they are also among the countries that are most exposed to the climate impact, like worsening droughts, floods, and cyclones. And the situation is about to get even more dire in Somalia. The United Nations humanitarian chief warns that drought-ravaged Somalia is on the brink of famine, and time is running out to save lives. Here's a detailed report. Take a look.
There are concrete indications that famine will occur in parts of Somalia between October and December, the UN's humanitarian chief said on Monday. Martin Griffiths made the warning in the capital Mogadishu, against a backdrop of worsening drought and global food prices hovering at near record highs.
I've been shocked to my core these past few days by the level of pain and suffering we see so many Somalis enduring. Famine is at the door, and today we are receiving a final warning.
The Horn of Africa is experiencing its worst drought in 40 years. Experts say the region is on track for its 5th consecutive failed rainy season. Griffiths said the current situations and trends resembled those when famine hit Somalia a decade ago.
Except now they're worse. The unprecedented failure of 4 consecutive rainy seasons, decades of conflict, mass displacement, severe economic issues are pushing many people to the brink of famine.
More than 250,000 people died in the 2010 to 2012 famine, and half of them were children.
And for more on this, joining us on the broadcast is Naomi Morris, who is the ambassador to United Nations OCHA and a well-known climate justice activist from Kampala, Uganda. Thanks very much for being here on the broadcast. The first ever global summit to focus on accelerating climate adaptation in Africa was held. The Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program is also very crucial for the entire region. Drought is nothing new for the African continent, but just help us better understand how bad is the drought this time around in the Horn of Africa.
Thank you so much. First of all, we should also understand what is the cause of this drought. This has been caused by the rising temperatures. In July 2022, Uganda only lost over 900 people in starvation. And this is because this region, Karamoja region, is next to Kenya. So all is counted as the Horn of Africa. And when you go to Somalia today, the new report of the UN humanitarian OCHA indicated that over 213,000 people are on imminent risk of dying. This is not new, just that we have not been caring. We have not been taking like a response, listening on activists when they talk about it. And again, the same report projected that in October 2022, if there is no urgent action taken, over 1.5 million children are going to be malnourished by October. And this is not just projection, but it's already happening. So in Kenya, livestock have been perished, over 1.5 million according to their report that was released in June. Rivers are drying up, wells are drying up, animals are collapsing. Imagine livestock that the Horns of Africa that mostly depend on are all nowhere to be seen. So how are we going to recover in this?
Right. How big is climate change as a reason as the region faces the 5th failed rainy season?
Yeah, climate change has been happening, but every time it continues to worsen because of our inactions. Today, I told you only in Uganda, 900 people were reported dead due to starvation in July 2022. And when you look at the livestock and the people of Kenya, over 1.4 million people are already suffering due to starvation and drought. And now when you come to Somalia, the number is going high. It is over 7 million people that are already struggling with drought that has already killed most of their livestock and farms. So the number is going up, and climate change is already ravaging because it is linked to drought, and drought is also part of climate change. So climate change is another issue when you talk about the people who are already migrating from one place to another, going to different camps. These people need health care, but where would they get it?
No, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for being here on the broadcast.
Thank you.
Moving on for now, India's Silicon Valley is struggling with floods and heavy rainfall as large parts of Bengaluru remain submerged underwater. The Karnataka Chief Minister has confirmed that the state will be releasing 300 crore rupees to tackle the emergency situation. Life for many in the southern Indian city of Bengaluru was disrupted after 2 days of torrential rain set off long traffic snarls, widespread power cuts and heavy floods that swept into homes and submerged roads. With several parts of the city still heavily waterlogged, people were hopping onto tractors to get to work. Many schools and colleges are shut. Power cuts have been reported in several parts. Boats were deployed to rescue people submerged in the floodwaters. The flooding of the mega IT hub for the second time in a week has brought into focus once again the consequences of unplanned urbanization. The Bengaluru civic body has identified encroachment on 500 storm water drains that have now left the city choking in water. Further, 430 houses have been completely damaged in the floods, while around 2,000 homes have suffered partial damage. About 225 kilometers of roads, bridges, electric poles have also been damaged. Though September is usually the wettest month in Bengaluru, this year has seen more rainfall than what's normal. Since the start of the monsoon season on the 1st of June, the city has received 141% more rainfall than the average. On Monday night, Bengaluru received 131.6 millimeters of rain, making it the wettest September day in the last 8 years. An endemic species found only in Cuba's Zapata swamp, the world's rarest crocodile, is critically endangered and only few thousands remain. The scientists in Cuba are racing against time to save them. The scientists estimate around 4,000 Cuban crocodiles live in the wild, but this small population faces a number of dangers. Illegal hunting is the leading reason for the depletion of the population, but other problems like the result of climate change and hybridization with the American crocodile are major threats that hinder the safety of the species.
The Cuban crocodile is catalogued by IUCN as a critically endangered species due to the number of specimens according to the latest report and the range of distribution of the species. We are talking about the smallest range of crocodiles in the world. They have an area of about 700 square kilometers, but the core population, where the largest number of Cuban crocodiles are found, is only about 300 square kilometers. That makes it very vulnerable because if something happened there, it would practically become extinct because the habitat would disappear.
Concerns over the critically endangered species prompted the Cuban government to underwrite a hatchery program that annually releases several hundred crocodiles into the wild. Researchers also liberate crocodiles confiscated from the hunters, a program that has helped reduce poaching of the species.
The fundamental objective is maintaining a Cuban crocodile population that contributes to conservation. The project's central idea is to protect free-living populations. How does keeping a group of animals in captivity generate a conservation project? By doing research projects, doing studies and learning things about the animals, that would have been impossible in the wild.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of WION Climate Tracker. We are taking a break at this point. Stay tuned to WION World is One. Thanks very much for watching.